May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable to you, my Lord. Please be seated. Whose wife will the woman be? The Sadducees intended this as a trick question, a confrontational question, but it's also a great question. It brings up our human concerns of what awaits us beyond death. With whom will we share that resurrection life? Jesus had been teaching the temple. He'd been confronting challenges from chief priests, from scribes, and confounding them with his answers about rendering taxes to Caesar. And he had been getting support from just the regular people who were there in the temple. Chief priests and Pharisees were frustrated and uncomfortable with his popularity. It's the Sadducees now who raised this challenge to Jesus, and they were the oldest and most conservative of the major religious groups at Jesus' day. They held a strict interpretation of the Bible. The first 5 books of the Bible, the Torah, were everything to them. They rejected oral traditions. They rejected resurrection that the Pharisees embraced. Only the Torah was authoritative. And their trick question to Jesus cites one of the laws of Deuteronomy, which is the 5th book in the Torah. And it's a law which sought to preserve the preservation of one's family name, directing that a man should marry the childless widow of his brother. The Sadducees' question takes this ancient law and takes it to an extreme to show that the whole idea of resurrection was foolish. Now, Jesus avoids their trap by making 2 moves. First, he demonstrates their question fails to convey an understanding of resurrection correctly. Resurrection life, contrary to the assumptions that are in the Sadducees' question, resurrection life is different, is qualitatively different from here and now. And second, he demonstrates their failure to understand scriptures by using another passage from the Torah. This is a pivotal Exodus story of Moses' encounter with God in the burning bush. Moses had been tending flocks out away from his homeland. He's tending flocks on a mountain, and an angel appears, and a voice comes to speak to Moses from a burning bush. The passage, Jesus points out, declares God is present tense. God is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, not that God was their God. And therefore, Jesus concludes, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob must be in some sense still alive, and hence the necessity and certainty of resurrection, of life after death. There must have been others listening, and the arguments well received, because in the passage just immediately following, the scribes will say, "Teacher, you have spoken well." And the passage says that the Sadducees dared not ask another question. Now, the riddle that the Sadducees posed focuses on death. Brother after brother dies without producing an heir. Time and again, the widow does not bear a child. Finally, she too dies. Who will remember her? Who will carry on the names and traditions of that family? To whom will she belong? In the age of the Torah and in the age of many societies, a primary concern is, what is my legacy? What is my lineage? What will be remembered about me? But Jesus' promise that there is a resurrection changes the terms of the question that was posed. If this woman has a life hereafter, it is because she is a child of God, not because she's a wife or a widow or a mother. It won't be because She's fertile or barren, married or widowed, forgotten or remembered. It is because she is, as Jesus says, considered worthy of a place in that age. And like everyone else who enters the resurrection, cannot die anymore because they are like angels and are children of God, being children of the resurrection. Jesus says that in resurrection, life will be different. But our questions about that life hereafter persist. Who will I see there? What does it mean we will be like angels? And would I even understand the answer if it was given to me? For me, one of the most personal examples of having to be continually open to reinterpretation, to reexamination, was having to totally reprogram my thinking on geology. When I was a child, in elementary school, we had that map of the world. You may have had one also. It showed the continents. It had Greenland looking huge, Australia sort of looked little, and the Pacific Ocean was divided in two. And looking at that map as a child, you had South America and Africa, and they seemed to fit together, like pieces of a puzzle. I was a child in the 50s, and I was taught that there have been some scientists who thought continents could move around and fit together, but that was just a coincidence. How could our land masses be sliding around through time like mats on the pool of mud? So I believed what I was told. And it was quite a surprise when I was a young adult to start reading about geology and understand that, oh yeah, they moved around. Brazil and Africa did fit together. These elegant theories of plate tectonics explain earthquakes, mountain building, volcanoes. And so the older I get, the more I expect to find that my knowledge of the natural world can be confounded and exploded and expanded in new ways, such as like discovering the fungal and chemical communications that go on between trees. And even wondering at my own backyard when I see entirely new insects, plants, animals. How much harder for me to decipher a life hereafter. I'm given no specifics, no guidebook with maps, no links to websites, no QR code that allows me to download a manual of life after death. Instead, we are called to surrender our questions and our difficulties. Trust God will handle things better than we could ever imagine. And God's love and care for us will surpass whatever I can imagine. Jesus calls us instead, attend the homeless, the hungry, the widow in this life. Attend the orphan, the outcast, those who are alone. He wants to draw our community into hope, promise comfort to those who mourn, blessings to the meek and the poor. Knitting together a community of love, support, and kindness that transcends family, status, roles. He calls us as Christians to practice a new way of doing family, saying that whoever does the will of my Father in heaven is also my brother, sister, and mother. And I've learned so much from our Good Shepherd community about living out this call. I phoned earlier this week to check on Mother Kay, who is without spouse or child, and her network of parishioners, former parishioners, past and present. They've run errands, they've worked on documents, they've brought companionship and comfort. And our networks of Fish and Martha's Kitchen, Altar Guild, so many others create the support and connection that the Sadducees assumed could only come from marriage and procreation. Our participation in Justice Knox allows us to extend this care out into the larger community. Love God, love your neighbor. Use our short time in this life to create that community of love and caring that cuts across the habits and cultures of a very material world. Last week, we named as saints those in our families, those we love, those who are no longer in this life with us. And I long to see all those who have died that I asked to be named, because each of those I named taught me such important lessons about love, unselfish living, living a godly community life. And Jesus promises that to God, all of them are alive. And that because of their connection with God, the Father, they are not dead to us. But it's a promise I only see through a glass darkly, as Paul said in his letter to the Corinthians. It's a promise that may have seemed absurd to the Sadducees, but it's a promise that enriches my life and resonates with my being. We are called both to love our neighbor in this life and to trust in Jesus' promise of a resurrection hereafter, knowing that it is a life beyond our imagining. Amen.